Good afternoon, everyone. More like global economy hitting bottom, not even close yet. Economist magazine, it's going to evaporate and something will rise from the ashes. US dollar future right here. But if it truly does evaporate, there has to be something else to take its place to restart the economy. It's been here all the time. Tesla technology, non-physical phenomena, vibration and frequency. Tesla Tower, we've had wireless transmission for more than a century. And looking back to 1910, Russia, what are all those antenna? Because there seem to be a lot of antenna here for flagpoles and lightning rods on this little tiny building. The technology, resonance, capture, and transmit. A lot of flagpoles and lightning rods on this little tiny building as well. So as you view buildings like this that could capture the plasma field around us, it's about the structural geometry as well, to hold a resonance frequency, whether that be audible or in a chamber, because a lot of these places look very out of place, especially 100 years ago. Where did this wirelessly powered clock come from in the 1600s? And you can tell me architects of the day went to this much trouble to make it look pretty? That's a wireless power station circa 1500. And this will be the replacement to create new jobs and restart the economy. A new bill in Washington is trying to invade your privacy. It's called the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act. If passed, this will be the end of warrant-proof encryption, meaning you and I won't have privacy from the government, even your own private encrypted data. Let me show you how it works. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the Download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox and click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green, and you'll see how from my initial service provider I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. And during the month of July, Virtual Shield wants to offer 50% off all VPN plans because more of us than ever are working from our homes. The link's in the description box below. I want to give a shout out to Max Egan, who I began to watch about Tartaria, and it really opened my mind. So when I was traveling, I started to see many areas, destinations that had a lot of the same replicating features. Had a chance to talk to Max, and I wanted to send out some of my research here about wireless power as a replacement for the collapsing economy in the new world that checks several different boxes for climate change, overcoming of too much power for mining, cryptocurrency, the non-usage of fossil fuels. We haven't hit bottom yet, but we will sometime in the very near future. It's going to be a complete replacement and a complete restructuring and rebuild of what you know as finance, money, buy-sell trade across the planet. Economist magazine obviously giving us the clues, but the future for all fiat is this. The transition will be into some sort of cryptocurrency along with metals, natural resources backed pledges, if you will, moving forward with far less people. Great book here, Jim Rickards. The Death of Money. The main takeaway is, if something goes to zero, there has to be something to replace it. And we've had it the whole time, since the early 1900s. Thank you, Nikola Tesla. Wireless power transmission, using the Earth's magnetic field and the plasma sphere around our Earth, extending out into space. Think Aurora, but more diffuse to power a system across the planet. It's been here for more than 100 years, purposely taken away to get us onto this current system of fossil fuels, mining, consumption, factories, and the build out of an entire planet that we never needed. We could have gone right here first. So all those lines you see in the air connecting homes that are copper cables for power, we never would have needed those. Think about how many industries and quadrillions of dollars have been produced in wealth to get us to this point when most of that would not have been needed. We're going to do a time machine. The antennas off of these towers are the key detail. And when you start looking around the planet, they're everywhere. You're definitely going to love this 30 rare color photos of the Russian Empire from 100 plus years ago. I linked in the description box below. Not only are the buildings themselves stupendous, unbelievable, outrageously beautiful, but the clothing of the era and the people as well. This, as I would consider, is another lost Tesla technology point here for sure. Something on the grandiose, what would you consider a substation or a power generation transmission station in itself. We do need to go back to Tesla, and he always talks about vibration and frequency, and this is the key here. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it'll make more progress in 1 decade than all the previous centuries of existence. Now add in a complete collapse of everything you understand finance-wise, moving into cryptocurrency, blockchain, and it's going to have to be an entirely new system built from scratch to provide power. Supply chains are going to break down. The mines aren't bringing us coal. There's going to be so many changes from shipping and logistics. Our world is going to change more in these next 10 years than the last 2,000. And that goes exactly with what Tesla says. Now, the playbook's already been put in motion here. So let's take a look. And what my personal opinion is where we're heading and how it's going to shift. Because circa 1910, you see some of these buildings around in images that haven't been destroyed. Most of them have been destroyed. And all we have left, except for some select countries such as Croatia, Czech Republic, Republic of Georgia, the Western European nations wiped these clean. And the naysayers would say, well, that's a flagpole and that's a rod up there in case of a lightning strike. And I'm like, well, that is an enormous amount of flagpoles and lightning rods up there for that little tiny building. I wonder what else is going on with it. Because when we look around at other structures, you're thinking vibration and transmission, holding the frequency in the plasma field and then able to use that within the building by resonating it. I was delving through the museums looking for exactly these types of images. Again, quite a few lightning rods and flagpoles for this little tiny structure. But when you look internally, this is where the goodness happens. And remember, almost all of these buildings were built for resonant frequency, either from the voice, horns, instruments, harmonics, sounds of water, or anything that can carry the frequency field and hold it. We have sine waves today, square waves. Think about it being built into a building to hold that pattern. So every time you walk into some of these cathedrals, and we've seen several of them being destroyed in just the last couple of years, maybe they're going to come back online as the Paleozoic effect in our Earth's crust amplifies with changes in our sun, and maybe that's the reason these were set on certain areas. Maybe they would auto-start again. But looking at the building is one thing. What's internal of it in the frequency field itself, the vibration of it. You have to have the two parts for it to work. And these images are from Dejeni Tsiskeho. Put together an amazing book back in 1989 of these different buildings and the architectural diagrams going with them. From the outside, you might think, oh, it's a cathedral, it's a church, it's a parliament building, whatever it is. But notice how they're designed to hold a vibration pattern in the architecture internally. Receive from the outside, hold the pattern on the inside. And it always seems to have series of towers with the antenna on top. And these things look more like circuit boards to me than they do random buildings. And these types of books that I'm looking at here are coming from a private collection. You just won't find these in a museum. It's all about the frequency, the vibration, transmission, and reception. It was here. Tesla had given us the way. Yet Morgan and the money swept this aside, and then suddenly, oh, we're back to it again. How was that 110-year hiatus to build out copper cabling? Once you understand the concept of the cones in the towers, you see it around the planet. There was previous power generation transmission that we are not privy to hundreds of years ago, in my personal opinion. And in Prague, I don't feel this is just a real pretty cathedral. I believe that this is also a wireless transmission main station. Because imagine if the plasma was jumping between those two and holding state, you could get a huge bubble outside that looks exactly like those wireless towers from Tesla. And it would be just about transmitting it into different receivers even out into the countryside, because back to these 100-year-old photos from Russia, some of these stick out like a sore thumb that are so out of place. You have a bunch of wood buildings, and then you have the towers with the antenna. Now, what if each of these households were able to themselves receive what was transmitted off of that? There would be no wires. We say they were barbaric because they didn't string the planet over the last 2,000 years with copper cables, but perhaps they never needed it. That's what we're missing. Because looking at these 100-year-old photos, these are so out of place. Really, you have 2 or 3 houses there, wooden buildings, and you have gigantic construction with the same antennas and the same types of towers in the landscape. And then it can step down, like we have a step down. When it comes into your home, you're not receiving off the kilovolt line. You're bringing it down into kilowatts for home usage. Same. And because my next trip was to the Republic of Georgia to actually go visit all of this and photograph it myself, I did a lot of research on where these areas were, and this is Tbilisi, otherwise known as Tbilisi. Look in the center there. You'll see the tower sticking out. It's almost as if it's a grid in itself, the way they're placed throughout the city. There's only 2 left now. The others have been torn down, and I wonder why. If they were such magnificent, well above everything else at that time, why would they tear them down? And we start to see this across an enormous amount of the world. Out of place, towers with the antenna, an opulent building that was so far ahead of the areas that they were built in. And this is from India to the Middle East to the U.S. and everywhere else in between across this planet. So when you look at these buildings and you look at the towers and the domes, maybe you can get a different idea of what they really were and why they were considered so sacred, because they were the power generation facilities for the society at the time. There's been a lot of disappeared history, because when I find artifacts like this, 1600s, wireless power clock. It's not wound from behind. And around the periphery, we have those same exact antennas, just in a smaller scale. So this can definitely be scaled to any size. And I do believe this is what we're moving to after the economy collapses. There'll be some brand new technology discovered in where Antarctica will the narrative be that allows us to have this full, wide-ranging wireless power system where we never need to burn another ounce of coal to generate power. How many boxes did that tick with the globalist agenda that people said no to? You brought us up on electricity from gas and coal. Yeah, suddenly we're supposed to stop and, go back living in the mud again. People wouldn't accept, so now it's being forced. But this is your replacement right here. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. I do more analysis like this on my Patreon channel /Adapt2030. Grand solar minimum approved media climate and economic history. I'll see you next video.